Mr. Mel Abraham. I'm going to bring him in here in just a second. And while we're talking, while I'm inviting Instagram things, here we go. Mel, you should be able to join here in just a second. But while he's doing that, Mel is an incredible entrepreneur, someone who's been around for a while, knows his shit, and is an absolute superstar in the space. Mel, welcome to the show.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
Dude, I'm doing good. It's been it's been about a year or so since I featured you in our summit, and it's great to have you back on the live.
Oh man, it's good to be here. So it's been about a year.
So real quick, just a little side note. Apparently, right out front of my window, they're cutting down trees. So it's just part of our game. But just want to let you know, if you hear anything, I'm not seesawing anyone in the back. It's just we got some tree stuff going on. So there you have it.
Hey, this is the world we live in these days.
It is. We have to overcome adversity and continue to play through,
Yeah, my gardeners just left about 2.5 minutes ago. So I'm like going, all right, hurry up with the blowers. Get out of here.
There you go. All right, so I'm going to start it off today by asking something that is super, super important. I'm recently gluten-free and dairy-free, and you made a post yesterday that blew my socks off, and I think it's serendipitous because I need to hear your favorite gluten-free and dairy-free recipe that you are loving these days.
Oh my God. She does so much. Now, just so everyone knows, I'm not the one that does the cooking. Stephanie does, and she's amazing at it. So she'll cook, like last night we had pasta, and it was chickpea pasta type of a thing. And so we do a lot of that. But the biggest thing is the desserts. She's figured out she makes ice cream. I was a gelato fiend, so we stopped sugar, dairy, and grains. She makes gelato. She makes ice cream out of cashews and coconut milk. So like I got pistachio ice cream in there. I got mint chocolate chip ice cream, and so it's amazing. It's amazing. So I bottom line is, giving up sugar, I didn't feel like I gave up much once she figured it out. And she doesn't sweeten things with sugar and everything, but she sweetens them with love and caring.
There you go. Well, I know that a big part of what you do is filled with love for what you do and who you help. So I want to know, you have something coming up in a couple weeks called the Fluence Live. What is this 3-part series? What are we talking about? Because you are crushing it in this space.
Yeah. So I've had a lot of people reach out to me to just say, hey, can you go deeper on some of the money stuff for entrepreneurs primarily, but it's for everyone. And one of the things that I noticed is that most entrepreneurs are building a house of cards and they don't realize it. Most entrepreneurs are coming to, they start business because they say, I want to be free. I want to have freedom. I want to have control. I want to be able to do things my way. And when they get into business, they find themselves on a treadmill, and they're what I affectionately call the treadmill entrepreneur, which is what happened to me. And the only thing that you do is you find yourself enmeshed in a business that requires you to run on the treadmill. And the only way to make more is to run harder, longer, faster, and stronger. And over time, you're going to hit burnout. You're going to hit breakdown, because we don't realize that the business machine isn't there to give us freedom. It's to have an impact and to create cash flow. So we need to run it to create cash flow, and then use the cash flow to build the second machine, which is where they miss. And that is called the money machine, because it's the money machine that gives us the freedom. And so this 3-day, it's not 3 days, it's 3-part training I'm going to do live. We're going to talk about the affluence journey, and we're going to talk about what gets in the way, the money things that get in the way, what we need to do differently. Then the second training, I'm going to walk through the 5 core principles. We're going to talk about setting your target. I mean, so many people get in the game of trying to build wealth, or trying to build a business, or trying to decide where they want to go, but they don't set the destination. They don't know what the finish line is. And then the third day, we're going to go deeper into, okay, now we know where we want to go. Now we know what obstacles are. what do we need to do? So the 9 accelerators of affluence, we're going to walk through that, and then we're going to dig down into doing some things to take care of the things that actually stand in the way, not the tactical stuff that people think. They ask about, you know, how do you invest? What do you need to do? But it's other stuff that is actually getting in the way. And so that's what we're going to do. There's, you know, I've got an action guide for it. We've got all kinds of stuff. So this is a workshop. It's us working it and doing some work. And we want to engage people and get them into a place where having a conversation around money is a safe, sane thing to do, because let's face it, people are struggling, and they've struggled with the pandemic. They've struggled with different things, and there isn't a need to struggle. There are things that we should be doing, but unfortunately, we don't have these conversations, so we're guessing. And so I don't want to change it. I want to have these conversations.
Yeah, I love that. And so the best place to sign up for this right now would be affluencelive.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, affluencelive.com, or the links in my bio.
Beautiful.
But yeah, affluencelive.com.
Beautiful. So, you know, one of the things that I'm always interested in is a lot of people want to be wealthy, right? A lot of people want to have money, but yet it's one of the topics that we very rarely can have an open and honest conversation about. Why is this, and what can we do to have better money conversations in our life?
So I think there's a couple things. Is that, and hopefully this comes across the way I mean it. But I think that there's naivete and ignorance around it because we don't teach. Where do we get our money knowledge from? It's caught, not taught, is what we say, because we get it through observation. We're watching our parents, and we listen, and we're eavesdropping. We're not even having an active conversation. We're eavesdropping on what our parents are saying, what the media is saying, what other people are saying, what the neighbors have said. And we take that in and we create our own interpretation for it. And so it's not even real. It's an interpretation of the facts of a conversation or something. So I think one of the problems is that people are reluctant to have the conversation because they feel like they should know, and they're embarrassed because they don't know, or they're unsure what to ask. And look, it's not their fault. It's not our fault. It's not your fault. We don't teach it in school. We don't have the conversations because we've been told it's impolite to talk about money. But here's the thing. If we're going to solve problems, the first step to solution is to have a conversation around. We can't solve a problem if no one's willing to talk about it. And so I just kind of said, look, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about the fact that 78% of people are living check to check, and it shouldn't be that way, and it doesn't need to be that way. Let's talk about the fact that you don't need to make $1 million to have $1 million. Let's talk about the fact that the most important thing that drives wealth is time and not money. Let's talk about the simple math problems that we have to solve to make it happen. And so I think that's where this all came from. But I think we're struggling out of naivete, ignorance, reluctance to bring it up because we believe we should know. Here's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
I've interviewed a lot of people that have had millions of dollars, hundreds of $1 million, and people that have nothing. And all of them, without question, have layers of embarrassment, guilt, and shame around money, around wealth building. And some of it is because they have it, some of it is because they don't, some of it is because they lost it, some of it, so there are different catalysts to it, but they all have the same feelings. So we're all feeling it, including myself. The fear of losing, the fear of this, all those things. So it's a normal thing, but we don't know it's normal because we're not talking about it.
And that's why we need to get signed up for your 3-part series, because we're going to talk all about that, right?
Oh yeah.
So okay. So I want to ask another question related to wealth and our mindset around wealth. And it's this idea. Do you think that the key to being wealthy is more understanding what you actually need to do, or is it having the right mindset about being open to what you need to do?
Oh, it's a great question. So here's the deal. I said some people will say that they have money issues. I don't think that anyone's got money issues. They have money symptoms.
Mm.
And they're symptoms of behavior issues. And the behaviors are symptoms of thinking issues. See, wherever you are in your life, wherever I am in my life, I am here because of the choices, the decisions, and the behaviors that I've had, the habits that I've created, either consciously or unconsciously. And so if I want to go to somewhere else, I need to use different behaviors. I need to do something different. And too often we don't know how. We're not unsure how. And so here's the idea is that it's easy to demonize money and say it's complicated. In fact, the financial services industry loves to have us think it's complicated, so we become dependent on them. And it doesn't, we don't necessarily need them. We use them, I use them, but I use them strategically in the right way. What we need to do is take responsibility for our behaviors, and from there, because if we have bad behaviors, if I have bad habits, all the tactics in the world aren't going to solve that. If I'm overspending, if I'm living beyond my check, beyond my means, if I'm putting myself tremendously in debt, if I'm over aggressive on investing, all of the tactics aren't going to fix those bad behaviors. And so I think that we need to look at it from that perspective.
Do you think there are things that we can do that wherever we're at in our life, whatever our thoughts are, whatever our symptoms are there any quick thoughts that you recommend people starting to think about differently, or affirmations or different ways to become aware that they have these money symptoms?
So here's the way I would have you do it is we need to separate fact from interpretation.
Yep.
And so when something comes up and you start to feel the tugs of emotion, or I don't like the word lack, but I'll say the word lack, that uncertainty, that fear, when we start to feel that, we need to stop. And we need to ask ourselves, what are the facts? Look, I got involved in an investment. Let's call it an investment right now. In 2004. By the time it hit 2005, I realized it was a Ponzi scheme. Okay? That Ponzi scheme wiped out 1/3 of my net worth. Myself and two buddies were in it together. And between the three of us, we lost $4.5 million. Okay? Now, it would have been easy for me to say, that guy stole the money from me. He was lying, cheat, deceitful. I'm keeping it clean. All those things. And blame him and say, look what he did to me. And I wear the cloak of victimhood. But it's not a powerful place to be. The fact of the matter is this. I had a responsibility. I gave him my money. I made the decisions. But what I need to do is I'm a CPA by education. I've been an entrepreneur. I do these things. I consult with people. And so the facts are, I gave him money. He took the money. He lied to me. And he stole the money. That's the facts. That's the bottom line. My interpretation that was going on in my head is, you're a schmuck. You're no good at this. You shouldn't be given advice. You should hang up your CPA license. You know, all of the interpretations. And if I would have let that drive the bus, I would have been in trouble. So when we can separate the facts from the interpretations, then we have the ability to say, oh, these are just my interpretations, my fears, my insecurities, the things that are really starting to drive home, and say, okay, what else could this mean? What else could the facts do for me? Well, you know what the facts of the Ponzi scheme did for me? It changed my investing rules. It gave me a whole new system. It gave me a whole new process to keep people and myself safe. It's what I teach, part of what I teach today. So, but until I was willing to accept responsibility, accept my involvement in it, I couldn't move forward from it. And so I needed to separate the interpretations from the facts. And I think that's the first step. Anytime you start to feel that and start asking yourself, well, if you hear something, I'm not good with money, or money's complicated, I'm not a numbers person. Those are interpretations. Those are stories. So we can examine where they came from, and then you can put them in perspective and say, oh, I observed something, I saw something, I experienced something, but what were the facts? And here's a quick way to figure out the facts. What would a camera lens see?
Mm-hmm.
Because a camera lens without sound, without emotion, would see something, and those are the facts. It doesn't warp it, unless the lens is dirty. It doesn't change it. It doesn't shift it. It doesn't give it interpretation. It doesn't give it meaning. It just is. You and I are on screen right now. That's the facts. Everything else will be an interpretation.
I love it. I love it. I feel like, I mean, obviously you're an expert at this, right? This is what you do. And this is why, like, I love talking to you about this, because I feel like every time I listen to you, whether it's on a show, whether it's another interview, or just even right now, is you make what like is so complicated in our society a little bit simpler, right? and like that's the sign of like someone who really knows their shit, and someone I want to listen to and learn from. And so when you are talking to all these different people, these entrepreneurs that have, you know, they're just starting, that are in the 7 figures, that are in 8 figures, the 9 figures, I would love to know, what are some of the differences about the way people approach money and their time when it comes to entrepreneurs who are just starting, entrepreneurs who are really gaining momentum, and then like 7-figure and beyond entrepreneurs? Are there any commonalities or viewpoints that people see money and time differently, or commonalities?
I think that there's a couple things that happen. One, there was a study done out of Harvard, 4,000 entrepreneurs. It was a happiness study. Okay, 4,000 millionaires, not entrepreneurs, and so the millionaires, they wanted to see what contributed to their happiness, and on the list wasn't the amount of money that they created, but it was how they created it. And so I think that what we need to understand is money is a result, not a purpose. There's a purpose behind it. That there's a difference between wealth and richness. Wealth is a statistic. It's a bank account. It's commas. It's zeros. Okay, it's meaningless. Richness is an experience. Richness is a feeling. Richness is what we actually yearn for. We want the money because we want the richness of life, but we confuse the two. And they're not the same. And let's be straight. People starting out, they might be in debt. They might be struggling. They might be living check to check. Money matters, okay? It matters because they're going, I just want to pay the bills. I just want to keep the roof over my head. So I get that. And we need to give them the tools and the tactics and the strategies to make that happen. Well, and there's studies that show this, once your sustenance, your survival is taken care of, the degree of happiness increase doesn't correspond to the degree of wealth increase. It corresponds to the degree of richness increase, the feelings and the experiences. When Stephanie and I got together, we've been married 10 and a half years now. But one of the things that we said to each other is that we want to create experiences with each other. We can have things, and money can buy things, but they're empty things if not the case. Now, it does take a slightly different mindset to build wealth than it does to keep wealth. And so, and And then alternatively, it also takes a different mindset once you build the wealth and keep the wealth to spend the wealth. So there's these stages you go through, because first, when you come into the game, whether it's in business or something, you come in with this, you're coming in clean and you go, I'm going to get after it. And you go after it, and you start making money, and you start putting money away. You start to build the wealth. And there's a tendency to then, instead of playing the game to win, you play the game not to lose. And that's a challenge, because in the end, typically you're scared to make the decisions. That the thing that gave you the edge at the beginning, you now put aside because you're afraid of it. And we need to be mindful of that. This is why coaches and mentors are important, because we can call. I've got coaches and mentors that call me out on my stuff.
Yep.
Okay. The reason that this training, this live training is going on, is because I had a dear friend and a coach, Rachel McMichael. Yeah, she's a dear friend, and we have a conversation. She says, "Just do me a favor, pull your calendar out." She's the reason we got this thing on the calendar, because she called me out on it. We need those people in our lives. But now, once we build the wealth, now wealth building is you're looking at things from an investment standpoint, from a saving standpoint, and from a creation standpoint. When we have the wealth, the accumulation, we now need to wear a bit of the hat of preservation. Mm-hmm. Now, in one case, in the first case, we're willing to take on risks, but in the second case, we're supposed to try and have the risks subside. But there's a delicate balance there from getting into fear. But then we go to the third stage, and sometimes the third stage, the challenge becomes that, okay, I've gotten so used to creating, I've gotten so used to accumulating and saving, and now you're saying it's time to go spend it because I'm retired. And they have a mental breakdown because they can't spend it, and so they don't live their lives. So I think we end up in these different phases depending on where we are, and we need to be aware of it and know that we need to grow with it.
Preach. I mean, just dropping knowledge, baby. I love it. It's fantastic. All right, so we're getting close here on our time, and I want to ask you this question because you've had tons of experiences, right? And I don't mean to play on what you just said, but you've had tons of life experience. You've gone through a lot in the last 5 years. You have gone through a lot with the experience you shared with us with money. I'm curious, if you look back at your entire journey, what's the one thing you would have wished you knew when first starting?
I wish I would have known that what really drives wealth is time and not money. And what I mean by that is this. So I just had my very first granddaughter. No, I just became a granddad to my very first grandchild. Okay, so she's 2.5 months old, and someone asked the question, what would you tell your son to do? What would you tell them to do, and what would you do for it? So I said, here's what I'm going to do, and I call it her name. Her name is Emily, so I call it the Emily factor, because I can. So here's the thing. I said, I'm going to put $500 into an investment account when she's born, and then I'm going to put $25 a week, $100 a month for the first 20 years of her life. Okay. And through the process, I'm going to spend the time like I did with my son, Jeremy, and educate them about the money principles, then what works. So over that 20 years, I'll put $24,000 away, roughly. And given the child tax credit today, you can actually get the tax credit to pay that for the $1,200 you're going to put away. It's a whole different conversation. But so I put $24,000 away on her behalf up to 20 years old. And if she's educated and we give her the skill sets that she needs instead of the assets that she wants, and she understands that I need to leave that, by the time she's retirement age, that $24,000 I put in there will turn into $1.5 million. I just set my granddaughter up for $25 a week for life. And I said, the thing that did that, though, was time, not money. And when we understand that, we start to do this. Jeremy and Cammie, 31 and 28 years old, my son and his wife, and I started working with Jeremy at 11 years old, started paying him a commission and letting him, and at 31 and 28, they have 3 homes and a multi-million-dollar net worth. Time is the greatest lever, not money.
Come on, Mel. I mean, this is so good. I mean, listen. If anyone's listening to this and that didn't just convince you to put $25 a week away for your future kids, your grandkids, whatever, then I don't know what will. That's unbelievable. Like, I love that. And I've recently learned so much more about that. And I put my bar mitzvah money in there and all these good things that have happened. I've been learning all about this. So that was just an unbelievable way to kind of wrap up. So let's get to it here. How do we sign up for Affluence Live? How do we follow you? How do we connect with you? How do we help you make us turn all the levers so that we can be wealthy, so that we can live a life of richness and have experience?
So go to affluencelive.com, grab your spot. It's free. I'll be doing the live training. We'll do the training live. There's a workbook and all that stuff, and I'll walk you through all the stuff. Follow me if you're not following me, Mel Abraham 9 on Instagram, on Facebook, and all of that stuff. If you have questions, money questions, financial questions, shoot them to me. Okay. I also have my show, the Affluent Entrepreneur Show, where I bring those questions on. I answer the questions. So here's the thing. I want you to think of me as your money mentor in your back pocket. There's no reason ever again for you not to have sane conversations, safe conversations without embarrassment around money, around wealth, about entrepreneurship, around business, and around living a rich life. And that's the game.
I love it. I have notes that I've been writing throughout this whole time. I hope everyone else does as well. But one last thing here is, what is the dates of Affluence Live? When are you starting?
We start, the first training is October 28th.
Beautiful. October 28th.
10 a.m. Pacific time.
Boom. Or follow Mel on Instagram at Mel Abraham 9. There you have it. Mel, thank you so much for coming on the Elevated Entrepreneur IG Live Show. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you as always. I feel like I always learn so much from you. I know that you have so much experience and a wealth of knowledge to share with everybody. And it's just a privilege to be able to bring that to the forefront and share that with everyone who gave us their time and energy and attention today. So thank you for coming on.
You got it, my friend. Thanks for having me, man. And anything I can do, hit me up.
Awesome. And for everybody else, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you next time, tomorrow actually, with another episode of the Elevated Entrepreneur Live Show. Talk to you guys later. Take care, Mel.
Cheers.